Nation of Fit in 10, welcome to day 39 of the challenge. I have not put up the calendar yet for you to book your scans, but I will do that very soon. I'll get it up tomorrow for sure, tomorrow being Wednesday, day 40, and you can book your third scan, which is going to happen next week on Wednesday and Thursday. So I'll let you know in Slack as soon as the calendar goes up, and let's get you in for your third scan. Your second comparative scan. All right, today I want to talk to you about healthy fats, good fats, bad fats. We'll go through some examples, but I'm going to try to keep this as concise and basic as possible. So, when we talk good fat, and I really hate the term good and bad, but let's just use that because we all have a better idea of what that means. So when we talk good fats, we are talking primarily about saturated and monounsaturated fats. Now, there are some polyunsaturated fats. I know this may not mean a whole lot to you if I say these words. Probably saturated fat does. There are some polyunsaturated fats which we do want to get a little bit of, and for example, fish oil would be one of those. Typically speaking, the bulk of our fat should come from saturated and monounsaturated. I know a lot of you are probably thinking saturated. Well, that's the bad one. I mean, that's the one that gives you, hardening of the arteries, and that's what causes heart disease, etc. But no, this is slowly coming out that this is just not the case. All right, this is sort of old news, 90s, 2000s. Of course, if you go and see your family doctor, they'll probably tell you to avoid saturated fat. Typically, that comes from the fact that with saturated fat comes dietary cholesterol, and I should do a video on cholesterol. I do have that actually in my calendar, actually just above here. So maybe we'll do that tomorrow. But for your sake, for the sake of your health, eating saturated and monounsaturated, primarily speaking, in terms of fat sources, is what you want. So what are some examples? Basically, stay away from all your seed oils, okay? All the oils that have to go through this major processing, essentially. We went through the steps of processing a number of videos ago. So when we're talking about, quote, good fats, we're looking at things like fat from animal, so animal lard, which is primarily monounsaturated, by the way. Animal fat is primarily percentage-based, over 50% monounsaturated. We're looking at things like avocado, primarily monounsaturated. Almonds, primarily monounsaturated. Butter, primarily saturated. Cream, primarily saturated. These are all good fats. Olive oil, primarily monounsaturated. It's actually got a good amount of saturated. Olive oil has a good amount of saturated. Yes, that's right. Olive oil, which we're always told is a good fat, high percentage of saturated in there. So, don't think that saturated fats are bad, because they're not, okay? This is just something we've been conditioned to, and we are learning that this is just not the case. Saturated fat is the most stable fat. It is the fat that is least likely to be carcinogenic. It is the least likely to be oxidized, because it has no double bonds, and so therefore it is the least reactive of all the fats. Polyunsaturated, as the name implies, poly just means there's multiple points of unsaturation, which means double bonds, and this just means that it's more reactive. So any of you who have a chemistry background, I know some of you do, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, but just think saturated and monounsaturated. And quite often, if you look at a bottle of olive oil on the side, it will tell you. If you look at, obviously, if you're buying nuts or something like that, you're not going to get that. Typically speaking, with nuts, we're getting primarily monounsaturated. And saturated, there will be some polyunsaturated in there. When we're talking fish oil, we're talking polyunsaturated. This would be an exception. We do want to get some fish oil because we want to get those omega-3s, those essential fatty acids, but we don't want to have a high amount of those. Okay, polyunsaturated fats that we want to try to avoid: peanut oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, cottonseed oil. I think soybean oil falls in there as well. Avoid those. Avoid the ones that we've been told to eat for a very long time. Okay, the vegetable oils. Avoid those. Avoid the seed oils. When it comes to fat from fresh fish and animals, try to get, the most organic, meaning that try to get meats that have been raised on their natural diet. So, for example, if we're looking at cows, try to get grass-fed meat. If we're looking at, fresh fish, we want to get fresh fish from the wild, right? Not farmed. Okay, unless with farm they're feeding it, their natural diet, which I don't think they are, but maybe they are. Okay, so but typically speaking, again, we want sources of saturated and monounsaturated fats. Okay, let's get to and if you've got some examples you're not sure of, you want to ask me, just go ahead and ask me. Macadamia nut oil is another good one as well, by the way. All right. This person writes, although I am tracking everything, eating whole foods, trying to plan my meals, I still find it hard to perfectly meet targets. I always fluctuate. Generally, I try to aim for my general calorie target. Okay, this is the most important thing. And protein targets, that's very important as well. Carbs and fats and sugars are carbs, of course, just seem to be a byproduct of meeting the calorie protein targets. So I'm sure there's a better way to plan so that all three are met. Yeah, pre-planning your meals. This is an old question, by the way. This is going back 3 or 4 weeks ago. Pre-planning your meals. So, I'm always going to go back to here because this is super important, but looking at your protein strong, fat strong, and carbohydrate strong foods, this is really, really important because as the next question comes in, this person's asking for, in fact, some examples. So all you need to do essentially, generally you're going to get fats as a byproduct in your foods, and fat is actually percentage-wise the least of all your macronutrients. So you're getting fat is only around 25% of your total diet. So, and you're already gonna get that from your carbohydrate sources and your protein sources. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So generally speaking, with most meals, you want to get a good protein strong food, typically an animal-based protein, and then we want to get some sort of carbohydrate, a vegetable or vegetables. Vegetables typically aren't very high in carbohydrates. Fruit or some sort of starch, right? Yam, potato, quinoa, rice, something like that, oatmeal. All right. And then all you have to do is just measure out the right amounts. All right, take your macros, as I mentioned, divide them into 4 meals, try to match each of those meals, okay? Get close, you don't have to be perfect. Okay, again, look at your protein strong foods, your carbohydrate strong foods, and perhaps your fat strong food if you have to add in a fat, okay? But pre-planning is everything in this, and this is how you learn your foods, all right? I know we're week 6, but I wanna keep reminding you of this. Okay, all right, message of the day. At least for this challenge, measured and methodical over time will get you to where you want to be. Measured and methodical, and this methodical really comes about too when we're talking about getting in enough calories. I know a lot of you have talked to me about, I need less calories, less calories. And always I want you to think long-term. If you want to go less calories, what's your long-term solution? What's your plan? I want to know it. Measured and methodical. Really what we can think about here is knowing what we're doing and being balanced with what we're doing. That's really what we're talking about. Not super high calories, not super low calories, somewhere in the middle, which is what you're getting, okay, over time. By the way, I do want to say one thing here. This challenge is not a fat loss maximization challenge. That's not what this is. I can make it really brutal and really do that, but you're going to pay the price at the end. Believe me, this is a fat loss targeted program, but it's not a fat loss maximization program. All right, so I want to make that clear. All right, so if you want to maximize fat loss, expect more results short term and expect a rebound. Okay, so just putting that out there, put that in your mind. All right, measured and methodical over time gets you to where you want to be. This really applies to many things. Positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, for love of God, give some gratitude, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.